This hallway could use a nightlight. I mean, there's an outlet around here somewhere. What did I even trip over? There's nothing in here. To figure out where my life-saving nightlight is going to go, I started by making a rubbing of the outlet and then measured the distance from it to the floor. And I'm using this LED nightlight, so I made an outline of it to position the house around. So I'll be building the house around it. Now, from there, I sketched out the house and made a template to start cutting up the front, sides, and roof. I'm using basswood, but you can use actually anything you want. See, cardboard, cardstock, whatever. This is what I had around, and so I'm going to use it. I'm giving each piece light sanding because now originally I was going to carve a brick pattern in there, but then decided better because that would have taken forever. So I'm going to go with a siding look, and that actually will better match my house anyway. I'm using this iron-on edge banding, and that's essentially a veneer with a heat-activated glue back. If you decide to use edge banding like I'm doing, just remember to go slowly and make sure that the strips don't move out of place on you, and allow time for them to cool, otherwise they will start sliding around. But once they're on and cooled, I trimmed up the sides, cut out the openings, and I just use a little utility knife for that. After a little cleanup, I glued on the sides with some glue wall. I'm not using wood glue or anything special here. I am using these precision squares to make sure they're, square, but I don't think most people have these. So just find something that is a 90-degree angle and use that to prop the sides up so that they end up straight when you're done. Now, the roof is meant to be a metal roof, so I'm carving a 45-degree angle on the front, and then I'll hot glue it in place to make sure that it holds the right angle until it's, cooled off, ready to go. And then for the sides of the roof, I'm just tracing those out, and then I'll cut out two of the same shape, and then I'll adjust them as needed as I put them in place. And again, a little hot glue here to make sure they stay in place, and a little glue wall on the edges to make sure that they hold permanently. The nightlight I'm using has a light sensor so that it goes off during the day. So I'm marking where that will go, and then I'll hand drill a hole for it. And I'm hand drilling because I discovered that no matter what I did, if I used the power drill, it would crack the wood. Now, later I will go back and make that hole look like a little window, so stay tuned for that. Now, I'm going to add a downspout here, and that's just a little strip of basswood. I attached a little funnel, and then I'm carving by hand so that it has like a half round on the front, and then I'm leaving the back flat so that it actually attaches to the house nicely. For the outlet part of the downspout, I'm just hand shaping this little piece of wood into a full round, and then I'll set it at an angle. And then just kind of clean up that shape, and I'm ready to go. Now, while that assembly dries, I'm cutting out the base and porch piece. All right, now the trick here is to be sure that it's square, but put the cut edge towards the back of the house. That will hide any kind of wonky edges that you'll inevitably have, and they won't look quite right on such a small little house. And then I'm just attaching this with some glue all, and then again some hot glue to hold it in place while I keep working. All right, I made this little stoop off camera. It's nothing special, a block of wood with a little panel on the top for the step. All right, now that the downspout assembly is dry and ready to attach to the house, I'm just going to attach it with some glue all and then a little hot glue to hold it in place. And that will hold it while I actually go back in and add the trim for that little window. And then these are little strips of edge banding again. I'm hot gluing them here because not only are they really, really tiny, but it's also way too difficult to get that large iron in there and still see what I'm doing. All right, moving on to the doors and the window. For the 6-panel front door, I'm going to use this little strip of wood that I know is straight, and I'm using that just to mark where the panels in the door will go. And then I'm just cutting out the lines with this jeweler's file. All right, now there's also going to be a balcony, so this will be the double doors for that. I'm actually having to rebuild the window area here because I tried to cut out the windows and it just destroyed that whole part of this panel. Now, luckily I was able to save the bottom part, and I made those panels in the bottom of these doors the same way as I made the front door. And then I didn't get a good video of making that window. I just wasn't really paying attention. But it's really just a frame with a dividing piece in the middle. All right, now that the glue on these windows and the doors are dry, I'm going over them with white paint, and I'm going over them with a pretty heavy coat that will cover up any kind of seams in the window frame and all of that. And then I'll go over those carved panel lines with a medium gray that will highlight and kind of clean up those lines. If you have a steady hand, you can probably skip the carving and just go ahead and paint those lines. So for the metal roof, I'm cutting a bamboo skewer in half, and then I'll use that for the seams. So I'm just measuring by eye how long they need to be, and then cut the pieces out, and then actually pick them up from wherever they shot off to, and then gluing them on with some glue all. For the balcony, I measured using the porch to make sure that it's actually comes out away from the house the same distance as the porch. And then when I got that squared up, I'm using bamboo skewers to make the balusters of the railing. And I learned my lesson. I held them this time to keep them from flying off to, who knows where. All right, so here I am checking that they're all mostly the same length. Try and make sure that they're the same length, otherwise you'll have these kind of large gaps in your railing. And then to make the handrail, I just cut out the pieces measuring against the balcony floor, and this took a lot less time with 4 of me working on it all at once. All right, so while the handrail dries, I mark out where I want the balusters to go. And then I'm actually drilling a little hole for each of those balusters to sit in while the glue dries. Now the trick is to drill to just kind of the bottom of the wood without drilling through, otherwise you will definitely crack it. And then just glue the handrail on and we're ready to start the stairs. Now, rather than doing all this math, rise over run foolishness, I measured how far down I wanted the stairs to go and then how far over. Then I divided the vertical line evenly and then put stair tread sized marks down the slope of the triangle like you're seeing here. After that, it's just actually a matter of connecting the lines and you have your stairs. And after all, they don't need to be up to code. Once I have my stairs sketched out, I'll cut that out, tape it onto the wood, and then cut the wood out. Now, the treads are cut from strips and are just the width of the porch. And I discovered if you cut through it hard enough, they all cut themselves out. And then to put these treads on, I'm using the same glue wall and then hot glue technique here. Not only does this keep them in place while the glue wall's drying, it actually adds some dimension and strength to the whole thing, so when you're done, it's a little bit stronger. Now, the balusters are more bamboo skewers, and I discovered if you wish hard enough, yep, they all cut themselves out. There are 4 posts. They have their own tiny little caps with little angle cuts. So just glue the caps on, set them aside, and let them dry. Then it's the same idea for the porch where you hand drill just to the bottom surface of that wood without going through. And then once the balusters are in place, make sure they're nice and straight, and then set them aside to dry. And again, the same idea for the steps where you just make sure you're positioning the hole for the balusters in the same place on each step. Otherwise, what you might find is a bunch of gaps as you put the railing on. Okay, now speaking of the railings, I actually glued the ends and then hot glued them onto the balusters. And I hot glued them on so that they were in front of the balusters when you're looking at the stairs. Now, originally, I thought I glued the porch on straight, and then I just started painting. Now, I'm painting all the trim and railings white, and then the house will be a light gray. This will match the part of my house that the nightlight will be in. I accidentally painted the roof gray. I wasn't paying attention, but you'll see I repainted that white later. And then I actually did have to go back, pry off the balcony, and then straighten it. You'll also notice I didn't attach the upper railing for the stairs, and that's because I won't know how long to make it until I attach them to the porch. And I'll just show you that at the end. And now it's time to pop in the door for the balcony, then the front door, and then finally the window. Now, once they're in, I'm securing them with hot glue. And then when that's cooled, I'll paint over it with black paint to prevent light leaking. I won't show you that, but just know that the whole inside of this is painted black. And then you'll notice I didn't put fake glass just to make sure that there's enough airflow. All right, I'm calling this one a big success. Not only did my wife and daughter both squeal and say it was adorable when they saw it, my son saw it and said, "Well, that's pretty cool, Dad." And so that's more of a response than I could have hoped for. So I'm really excited. That's all I needed to hear. Anyway, I also want to thank everybody who has subscribed and has been telling their friends and family and sharing my videos. I'm seeing a lot of growth even in the infancy of my channel. So thank you again, and I hope to see you in my next video. But without further ado, here's the house.